big promotion behind me is the new Nike launch.
The crowd outside Court 6 in Melbourne stretched so far that security guards stopped trying to measure it. People were standing on benches, leaning over railings, holding Philippine flags above their heads just so their friends somewhere deeper in the line could still see them. A grandmother in a yellow jersey fanned herself with an Australian Open brochure while two teenagers beside her refreshed YouTube clips of Alex Eala highlights every 30 seconds like they were checking breaking news. Inside the stadium, the warm-up had not even started yet. And somehow, impossibly, a 20-year-old Filipina ranked outside the top 50 had already become the biggest story at the tournament. Not Aryna Sabalenka, not Carlos Alcaraz, not Novak Djokovic. Alex Eala. The numbers made absolutely no sense. 171,000 YouTube views on her pre-tournament press conference at the Australian Open. Carlos Alcaraz? 29,000. Coco Gauff? 29,000. World number 1 Aryna Sabalenka? Barely 9,000. At first, people treated it like a curiosity. A random spike. Maybe Filipino fans were simply enthusiastic online. Then the crowds arrived. And suddenly tennis realized this was not internet hype. This was a movement. The Australian Open scheduling team placed Eala on Court 6, a small outer court with room for roughly 1,500 people. It should have been enough for a first-round match involving a young player who had never won a Grand Slam title. Instead, it became chaos. Thousands of Filipino fans poured through Melbourne Park before sunrise trying to get inside. The line wrapped around barriers, stretched through walkways, clogged staircases, and created what BBC commentators later called a logjam. Security personnel looked overwhelmed. Tournament staff looked confused. And somewhere inside the player tunnel, Alex Eala walked toward the court carrying pressure unlike anything women's tennis had seen in years. Not pressure created by rankings. Pressure created by people. An entire country had attached itself emotionally to her journey. That is what the tennis establishment failed to understand at first. Alex Eala was never just a player. She was representation. Hope. Proof. The daughter of Quezon City carrying 117 million Filipinos onto tennis' most exclusive stages. And by the summer of 2026, the sport could no longer pretend it hadn't noticed. Because while the world number 1 entered Wimbledon defending her image, the number 29 seed entered carrying a nation. 5 days before Wimbledon began, Alex Eala stood in Birmingham holding her first professional grass court trophy. Rain clouds drifted above the court while Filipino flags shook wildly in the stands. The match had nearly broken her. She lost the opening set against Nicola Bardankova. Her legs looked heavy. Her shoulder was strapped. And for long stretches, it felt like fatigue might finally catch her. But that had become the defining trait of Alex Eala's rise. She refused to disappear quietly. Every time the match tilted away from her, she fought harder. Every time doubt appeared, she answered with aggression. Every time pressure tightened around her throat, she swung anyway. She won 5-7, 6-3, 7-5. Then she walked to the microphone. The crowd expected the usual speech. Thank the tournament. Thank the coaches. Thank the sponsors. Instead, Alex looked directly toward the Filipino supporters filling the stadium and said softly in Tagalog, "Home is the people, not the place." The reaction was immediate. The cheer sounded less like applause and more like release. Because for millions of Filipinos watching around the world, in London hospitals, Toronto apartments, Dubai offices, Los Angeles restaurants, Sydney train stations, she had just said something they understood in their bones. Diaspora. Distance. Homesickness. Sacrifice. The feeling of belonging to a country, no matter how far away you are from it. That sentence changed everything. From that moment forward, Alex Eala stopped being merely a rising tennis star. She became emotional property of a nation. And Wimbledon had absolutely no idea what was coming. 2 weeks before Birmingham, Eala had already shocked the tennis world in Berlin. Nobody expected her to survive the early rounds. The tournament draw looked brutal. Then she beat Elena Rybakina. The former Wimbledon champion entered the match as one of the most dangerous grass court players alive. Powerful serve, Clean ball striking. Experience on big stages. Alex beat her anyway. Fearlessly. Then she beat Alina Svitolina. Back-to-back victories over top 10 players. Suddenly commentators stopped using phrases like promising young talent. Now, they were saying words like contender, threat, future star. Greg Rosetsky openly suggested Wimbledon might become her breakthrough Grand Slam. Annabelle Croft looked at the crowds surrounding her matches and admitted live on British television that the sport had underestimated what Alex Eala represented. Because this wasn't normal fan support. Normal support does not create stampedes outside side courts. Normal support does not force Grand Slam tournaments into public apologies over scheduling decisions. Normal support does not produce 171,000 views for a player who exits in the first round. Alex Eala was operating on a completely different frequency. And somewhere else in the draw, Aryna Sabalenka was unraveling publicly. The contrast could not have been sharper. While Eala spent press conferences talking about Filipino pride and community, Sabalenka spent hers defending herself from criticism. 3 days before Wimbledon, Reuters quoted the world number one admitting she had fallen into what she described as a deep dark hole following her Roland Garros collapse. "I just want to quit tennis right now," she told reporters. The Guardian published features dissecting her personality. British media called her press conferences tense and uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Alex Eala walked into Wimbledon smiling beneath impossible pressure. One player defended her image. The other carried an entire country. And the tournament grounds could feel the difference. Then came the Nike phenomenon. July 21st, 2025. Nike Fort, BGC. Bonifacio Global City. A single white t-shirt caused near hysteria. Not a signature shoe. Not a championship jersey. A t-shirt. The design featured a small stitched Sampaguita flower inspired by a one-of-one hair tie Nike created for Alex before her Wimbledon debut. The collection was called Nike by You, in full bloom. The symbolism mattered deeply to Filipinos. The Sampaguita is the national flower of the Philippines. Tiny, delicate, resilient, beautiful despite harsh conditions. It mirrored Alex perfectly. Nike massively underestimated demand. The company launched the collection through one physical store and one online retailer. Within seconds, inventory vanished. Nike Philippines later admitted online stock sold out in under 60 seconds. Inside the BGC store, fans emptied shelves in roughly 10 minutes. People cried, argued, called relatives frantically trying to reserve pieces. Resellers immediately flooded Lazada listings at triple retail prices. And suddenly the global sportswear giant realized something terrifying. Alex Eala merchandise moved faster in the Philippines than many top 10 players moved globally. That changed the economics of tennis overnight. Because tennis had always revolved around Europe and North America. The Philippines had never been treated like a serious tennis market. Now, a Filipina ranked outside the top 50 was generating sneaker culture demand levels from ordinary tennis apparel. The sport was being forced to reconsider its map. And Alex Eala was standing at the center of that earthquake. But behind the crowds, the merchandise hysteria, and the viral videos, something dangerous was quietly building. Pain. The warning signs appeared during Berlin, then became impossible to ignore in Bad Homburg. Heavy tape wrapped around her shoulder. Subtle discomfort between points. Reduced power on serve. Tired movement. Analysts began whispering about overscheduling. Birmingham, Queen's Club, Berlin, Bad Homburg. 4 consecutive grass court tournaments with barely any recovery time. Alex kept insisting everything was precautionary. "My athleticism is something I've been working on," she explained calmly. "I'm just trying to keep my body in shape." But by Wimbledon week, nobody fully believed that anymore. Then came the practice court incident. 48 hours before Wimbledon. Arangi practice courts. Perfect grass. Bright sunlight. Television cameras rolling. Alex struck an ordinary forehand, then suddenly stopped. A sharp cry escaped her mouth. She grabbed her shoulder immediately. Silence crashed across the practice area. Players stopped hitting. Coaches sprinted toward her. For a terrifying few moments, The first Filipina seed in Grand Slam history stood frozen on the grass, clutching the arm that carried an entire nation's dreams. Social media exploded within minutes. Had she torn something? Would she withdraw? Was Wimbledon over before it began? Fans across the Philippines panicked. Prayer circles formed online instantly. Messages flooded every platform. Not like this. She deserves this. Please let her be okay. And in that moment, something profound became obvious. Alex Eala's relationship with Filipino fans had moved beyond sports entirely. This was emotional family territory now. People did not support her like a celebrity. They worried about her like a relative. That is extraordinarily rare in global sports. Because Alex represented something deeper than tennis. She represented visibility. For overseas Filipino workers. For immigrants. For young girls who had never seen themselves on tennis' biggest stages. For people who spent decades feeling invisible inside global conversations. That burden can crush athletes. But somehow, it seemed to strengthen her. The next day, she returned to practice. Still taped. Still hurting. Still swinging. And when she finally walked onto Wimbledon grass as the number 29 seed, the atmosphere felt historic before the first point even began. Thousands of Filipino fans filled the stands. Flags everywhere. Chants echoing through the All England Club. Longtime Wimbledon members stared around in disbelief. They had never seen anything like it. Across the net stood Renata Zarazua. A familiar name. A painful memory. 2 years earlier in North Carolina, Zarazua had staged a comeback victory that haunted Eala for months. Now fate placed them together again on tennis' grandest stage. The symbolism felt almost cinematic. The woman connected to one of Alex's most painful losses, standing directly between her and history. The match began nervously. Both players cautious. Testing. Waiting. But gradually the rhythm shifted. Alex started attacking more aggressively. Her forehand opened the court beautifully. Her movement sharpened. Then came the break point. The entire stadium held its breath. Alex unleashed a blistering forehand winner that froze Zarazua completely. The roar inside Wimbledon sounded unlike anything the tournament had experienced in years. Not polite applause. Emotion. Raw. Overwhelming emotion. From there, Alex never lost control. She won in straight sets. And when the final ace landed down the tee, she collapsed to her knees, crying. Overwhelmed. Not because she had won one tennis match, because every sacrifice connected to that moment arrived inside her body all at once. The academy years in Mallorca, the homesickness, the pressure, the losses, the injuries, the flights, the criticism, the responsibility. Every single part of it led here. The first Filipino seed in Grand Slam history had just won Wimbledon. And the celebration inside the stands looked more like a national event than a tennis match. But the moment that truly changed everything happened afterward. The press conference. At first it felt routine. Questions about nerves. Grass court preparation. Filipino support. Then a journalist mentioned tournament scheduling and crowd management. And Alex Eala decided to tell the truth. Calmly. Directly. Without fear. 25,000 Filipino fans traveled across the world to watch me play, she said. And the sport still doesn't seem to understand what that means. The room shifted instantly. At the back of the press conference sat a Wimbledon tournament official. His face tightened immediately. Alex continued. At the Australian Open, they put me on court 6. Thousands of fans waited outside and couldn't get in. It happened in Dubai. It happened in Indian Wells. It happened again here. Silence. Journalists stopped typing. The official slammed his folder shut. Alex kept speaking. I'm not just playing for myself anymore, she said quietly. I'm playing for every Filipino who has ever been told they couldn't. Then she looked directly toward the back of the room. And I think it's time the sport recognized that. The official stood abruptly and walked out. No statement. No explanation. Just anger. The room exploded. Cameras flashing. Reporters shouting questions. Phones buzzing with breaking news alerts. But Alex stayed perfectly calm. Because she understood something the establishment still struggled to grasp. The audience had already chosen. Tennis no longer belonged exclusively to old structures. Not when a Filipina ranked 29th in the world could outdraw Grand Slam champions online. Not when thousands of overseas workers spent savings just to watch her play. Not when entire stadiums transformed emotionally the second she walked onto court. Alex Eala wasn't asking for special treatment. She was demanding the sport acknowledge reality. And reality was impossible to ignore now. The fallout became global instantly. Filipino fans celebrated her honesty. She spoke for all of us. One viral comment read, "She didn't just win a match. She defended the people." Critics accused her of arrogance, said she was too young, too inexperienced, too emotional. But the numbers defended her better than any argument could. 171,000 press conference views. Thousands locked outside side courts. Sold out merchandise in minutes. Record engagement metrics. The data was overwhelming. Alex Eala had become tennis' loudest force. Not necessarily its best player yet, but unquestionably its most emotionally powerful phenomenon. And somewhere quietly watching all of this was Rafael Nadal. The connection between them had become one of tennis' most emotional stories. Years earlier, a small Filipina girl arrived at the Rafa Nadal Academy carrying almost nothing except belief. Mallorca hardened her. The academy demanded discipline, suffering, repetition. Scholarship athletes had to prove themselves constantly. Alex did. Nadal noticed. Not formally at first, just quietly observing. He saw something familiar in her. Stubbornness. Fight. An unwillingness to surrender emotionally, no matter the scoreline. By 2025, the world started seeing it too. Miami Open. Wild card entry. Alex stunned Madison Keys. Then Yelena Ostapenko. Then world number 2 Iga Swiatek. Straight sets. The tennis world nearly short-circuited. And afterward, Nadal privately messaged her. The details remained personal. But Alex later admitted his words overwhelmed her emotionally. Then came Eastbourne. Championship point. One shot away from her first WTA title. She missed. Then collapsed emotionally during the changeover. The cameras caught everything. Raw heartbreak. No filters. No media training. Just human pain. Nadal saw the clip in Mallorca. Then posted 4 simple words. She will be back. The message exploded online. Because nobody understood competitive suffering better than Rafael Nadal. And nobody watching Alex Eala doubted she would return stronger. Months later in Guadalajara, she finally won. Collapsed to the court crying. And this time Nadal cried too. The video of his reaction spread worldwide. Millions of views. Because people instinctively understood what they were witnessing. Not mentorship. Inheritance. The transfer of philosophy from one generation to another. Nadal's spirit living inside a Filipina teenager carrying impossible expectations with extraordinary grace. That is why the Wimbledon crowds felt different. That is why Nike underestimated demand. That is why press conferences generated more interest than world number ones. That is why Court 6 became a scandal. Alex Eala was never just about tennis. She represented emotional connection in an era where sports increasingly feels corporate and distant. Fans saw themselves inside her story. The struggle, the homesickness, the sacrifice, the refusal to disappear. And perhaps that is what terrified the establishment most. Because movements are harder to control than athletes. Movements change institutions. Movements force adaptation. Movements create pressure from below. And by Wimbledon 2026, Alex Eala had become exactly that. A movement. The scary part for the rest of the tour? She was only beginning. She had not reached her peak physically, had not fully developed her power, had not maximized her serve, had not yet mastered deep slam consistency. Yet already she was changing crowd behavior globally, changing scheduling conversations, changing commercial assumptions, changing how tennis thought about Asia. The number 29 seed had become larger than her ranking. And across the tennis world, people started asking the same dangerous question. What happens if Alex Eala actually becomes world number 1? Because if this was the reaction before winning a Grand Slam, what happens after? What happens when those crowds stop gathering outside Court 6 and start filling Arthur Ashe Stadium? What happens when Nike finally releases enough merchandise globally? What happens when little Filipino girls grow up believing Grand Slam finals are realistic dreams instead of impossible fantasies? What happens when the sport fully realizes the scale of the audience waiting behind her? That is the future Wimbledon suddenly found itself staring at. Not just a rising player, a structural shift, a cultural force, a Filipina carrying a country so loudly that even the world #1 could not drown out the noise. And somewhere inside the All England Club, among the ivy walls and century-old traditions, tennis quietly understood something irreversible. Alex Eala was no longer arriving. She had arrived.